Some days start like any other. You wake up, you brush your teeth, you put on your coffee. You think it's just Tuesday. But then something happens, one moment, one word, one look, and suddenly your whole life splits in two. There's the before and there's the after. And you can never go back. That Tuesday morning, I was standing in my kitchen, though nobody in that house knew it yet, making breakfast like I did every single day. Eggs, turkey bacon, grits with butter, and fresh orange juice. I had the gospel station playing low on the radio, Shirley Caesar singing about how the Lord will make a way. And I believed it too. I had to believe it, because belief was the only thing holding me together at that point. My mother-in-law, Dolores, was sitting at the dining table like she owned the place. Back straight, chin up, lips pressed together like she was judging everything I did. And she was. She always was. That woman had moved in 3 months after our wedding, talking about temporary, talking about just until I get back on my feet. That was 2 years ago. 2 whole years of her looking at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of her designer shoes. Naomi, she said, not even looking up from her phone. These eggs are dry again. I don't know how many times I have to tell you, Marcus likes his eggs soft. Didn't your mama teach you how to cook? I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. I'll remember that, Miss Dolores, I said, keeping my voice steady. Keeping my hands from shaking. See, that's the thing about being a black woman in this world. We learn early how to swallow our rage. We learn how to smile when we want to scream. We learn how to say yes ma'am when everything inside us is saying how dare you. We carry generations of strength in our spines, and sometimes that strength is the only thing keeping us from falling apart. But that morning, I didn't know that everything was about to change. I didn't know that by sunset, I would finally say the words I'd been holding inside for 2 long years. I didn't know that the secret I'd kept, the secret that weighed on me like a stone, would be the very thing that set me free. Have you ever held something so tight, for so long, that your fingers forgot how to let go? Have you ever had a truth burning in your chest, but you knew that saying it would change everything? That was me. That was my life. And this is my story. Let me take you back. Back to before Dolores. Back to before Marcus even knew my name. Back to when I was just Naomi Grace Williams, a 28-year-old accountant with big dreams and a bigger heart. I grew up in a little house on the east side of Baltimore. Nothing fancy, just 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a whole lot of love. My mama, Loretta, raised me and my 2 brothers all by herself after my daddy passed when I was 7. Heart attack. One day he was there, laughing at the dinner table, calling me his little princess. The next day, he was gone. Just like that. Mama worked 2 jobs to keep us fed. Days at the hospital as a nurse's aide, nights cleaning offices downtown. I used to wait up for her, sitting by the window, watching for the headlights of her old Honda to pull into the driveway. And when she finally walked through that door, tired as she was, she always had a smile for me. Always had a kiss on my forehead and a whisper, "You gonna be something special, baby girl. Don't you ever forget that." I believed her. I worked hard in school, got myself a scholarship, graduated top of my class with a degree in accounting. Got a good job at a firm downtown. Saved every penny I could. And when Mama got sick, cancer, the doctors said, stage 3, I was the one who took care of her. My brothers had their own families by then, their own struggles. But I was there. Every chemo appointment. Every sleepless night. Every moment until the very end. She left me everything she had. It wasn't much by some people's standards, just that little house in Baltimore and about $40,000 in savings. But to me, it was everything. It was her whole life's work. It was her love, transformed into something I could hold. I sold that house, combined the money with my savings, and bought an apartment. Not just any apartment, a beautiful 2-bedroom condo in a nice neighborhood in Atlanta. I had moved there for work, for a fresh start, for a chance to build something new. And I did. I bought that place outright. No mortgage. No debt. Just me and my keys and the pride of knowing I had done it all myself. That apartment was my sanctuary. My proof that a little black girl from East Baltimore could make something of herself. Every time I walked through that door, I felt my mama smiling down on me. And then I met Marcus. Lord have mercy, that man was fine. I met him at a networking event downtown. He was tall, at least 6'2", with skin like mahogany and a smile that could light up a room. He was wearing a tailored suit, charcoal gray, and when he walked toward me, I swear my heart stopped beating for a full 3 seconds. "I'm Marcus," he said, extending his hand. "And you are far too beautiful to be standing here alone." Now, I'm not the type of woman to fall for smooth lines. I've heard them all, and I've rolled my eyes at most of them. But there was something about Marcus. Something in his eyes that seemed genuine. Something in his voice that made me want to believe. We talked for 2 hours that night. He told me about his job as a marketing executive. About his dreams of starting his own firm someday. About his childhood in Savannah, his love for jazz music, his belief that family was everything. He asked me questions about my life, my work, my hopes. And he actually listened. Do you know how rare that is? A man who actually listens. We exchanged numbers. He called the next day. And the day after that. Before I knew it, we were having dinner 3 times a week. Then 5. Then every night. He'd show up at my door with flowers and that smile, and I'd melt like butter on a hot biscuit. After 6 months, he asked me to move in with him. But here's the thing, his apartment was smaller than mine. A 1-bedroom in a not-so-great part of town. So I suggested he move in with me instead. "This place is nice," he said, looking around my living room. "How much is the rent?" And that's when I made the decision that would shape everything that came after. $1,800 a month, I said. A lie. A deliberate, calculated lie. I don't know why I said it. Maybe it was something Mama used to say, don't ever let a man know everything you got, baby. Keep something for yourself. Just in case. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe it was God whispering in my ear. Whatever it was, I listened. Marcus nodded, looking impressed. "We can split that," he said. "This will be our place now. Our place." I let him believe it. I took his $900 every month, put it in a separate savings account, and never said a word. The deed stayed in my name. The truth stayed in my heart. And life went on. He proposed 8 months later. A beautiful ring, a candlelit dinner, tears in both our eyes. I said yes. Of course I said yes. I loved him. At least, I loved the man I thought he was. But I still didn't tell him about the apartment. Something in me whispered to wait. Something told me the truth would have its time. I just didn't know how important that timing would be. The wedding was beautiful. Small but elegant, just close friends and family at a little church in Midtown. I wore my mama's pearls with my white dress. Marcus cried when he saw me walking down the aisle. His best man had to hand him a handkerchief. His mother, Dolores, sat in the front row wearing a hat so big it could have sheltered a small family from the rain. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just watched me with those sharp eyes of hers, like she was taking measurements. Like she was figuring out how to take me apart. I should have paid more attention to that look. I should have listened to the warning bells ringing in my head. But I was in love. And love makes you blind to all kinds of danger. The first few months of marriage were good. Really good. We found our rhythm, built our routines, learned how to be partners. Marcus was attentive, loving, everything I'd hoped for. Sure, he called his mama every day, sometimes twice, but I thought that was sweet. A man who loves his mother will love his wife, right? Wrong. So wrong. It started with little comments. Dolores would call and Marcus would put her on speaker, and I'd hear her say things like, "I hope Naomi's taking good care of you, baby." You know how some women are, they rope you in with sweetness and then show their true colors. Or, "That apartment y'all living in, it's nice enough, I suppose. But you deserve better, Marcus. You deserve a house. A real house. When you gonna start building equity instead of throwing money away on rent?" I wanted to scream through the phone, "This is equity. This is my equity. I own this place." But I stayed quiet. Kept my secret. Kept my peace. Then came the day that changed everything. Marcus came home looking troubled. Sat me down on the couch. Took my hands in his. "Baby," he said, "I need to talk to you about something. It's Mama. She's having a hard time. The landlord raised her rent again, and her social security just isn't enough. She's talking about moving in with my sister, but you know Charlene's got 4 kids in that little house already. There's no room." I felt my stomach drop. I knew what was coming. "I was thinking," he continued, "maybe she could stay with us? Just for a little while. Just until she gets back on her feet." What could I say? This was his mother. In our culture, family is everything. You don't turn your back on family, especially not your elders. My own mama would have haunted me from the grave if I'd said no. "Of course," I said, forcing a smile. "Family is family." Marcus hugged me so tight. "I knew you'd understand," he whispered. "That's why I love you." I hugged him back, but something cold had settled in my chest. A knowing. A warning. I should have listened. Dolores arrived 2 weeks later with 7 suitcases and a whole lot of attitude. Have you ever watched a tide come in? At first, it's just little waves lapping at the shore. Nothing scary. Nothing threatening. But wave by wave, inch by inch, the water rises. And before you know it, you're drowning. That's what living with Dolores was like. It started small. A comment here, a look there. She'd walk into the kitchen while I was cooking and say, "Oh, you're using that spice? Interesting." Marcus never did like too much seasoning. She'd rearrange my furniture while I was at work, claiming she was just tidying up. She'd answer my phone when I left it on the counter, then give me messages hours later like it was a favor. "Your friend Tamara called," she'd say with a sniff. "She talks too loud." Very unrefined. Tamara was my best friend since college. My sister in everything but blood. But I kept my peace. I told myself it was temporary. I reminded myself that this woman had raised the man I loved. I swallowed my frustration like bitter medicine and prayed for patience. Then the criticisms got more personal. "Naomi, dear, have you thought about doing something with your hair? Those braids are so heavy-looking." Marcus always did like women with more polished styles. "Naomi, don't you think you should lose a few pounds? I'm just saying this for your health, sweetheart. And for my son. A man has needs, you know. Naomi, I notice you don't go to church every Sunday. You know, in our family, faith is very important. I hope Marcus didn't marry someone who doesn't have a relationship with the Lord." I wanted to tell her that my relationship with the Lord was just fine, thank you very much, and that he and I had plenty of conversations about how I should handle living with a woman who seemed determined to break me down piece by piece. But I said nothing. I smiled. I nodded. I died a little inside every single day. And Marcus? Where was Marcus in all of this? Right there. right beside me, watching it all happen, and saying nothing. At first, I thought he didn't notice. Men can be oblivious, right? They don't always pick up on the subtle warfare that women wage. So I started pointing things out. Marcus, did you hear what your mother said about my weight? He'd shrug. She's just concerned about your health, baby. She means well. Marcus, your mother rearranged our entire living room while we were at work. She's probably just bored, Naomi. She needs something to do. Marcus, she told me my cooking isn't good enough for you. Well, maybe you could ask her for some recipes? She's an amazing cook. You might learn something. Do you know what that feels like? To have the man who vowed to love and protect you side with someone else against you? To feel like a stranger in your own home, in your own marriage? I started sleeping on the edge of the bed. I started dreading coming home from work. I started crying in the shower where nobody could hear me. And still, I said nothing about the apartment. A year passed. Then another. Dolores's temporary stay became permanent. She had completely taken over the guest room, filled it with her furniture, hung her pictures on the walls. She had her mail forwarded to our address. She told her friends this was where she lived with her son. Not with her son and his wife. Just with her son. Like I didn't even exist. The kitchen became her domain. She cooked dinner every night, insisting that I relax and let her take care of her baby. But she never asked what I wanted to eat. Never cooked anything I liked. And when I did try to cook on weekends, she'd hover over my shoulder, sighing and tooting, until I gave up and let her take over. The living room became her throne. She sat in the best chair, controlled the TV, decided what we watched and when. If I tried to put on a show I liked, she'd make comments until I changed it. Oh, you watch this? I would have thought you had better taste, Naomi. But then again. She trailed off, leaving the insult hanging in the air like poison. And Marcus. My Marcus. My husband. He drifted further and further away from me. His mother's house now, that's what it felt like. I was just the help who happened to sleep in his bed. He stopped asking about my day. Stopped touching me with affection. When we talked, it was always about his mother's needs, his mother's opinions, his mother's comfort. If I ever complained, he'd get defensive. Why can't you just get along with her, Naomi? She's an old woman. She's my mother. What do you want me to do, throw her out on the street? No. I didn't want that. But I wanted to matter. I wanted my home back. I wanted my husband back. I wanted to feel like more than an inconvenience in my own life. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Another ordinary Tuesday that would become extraordinary. I came home from work early. A migraine, I told my boss. But really, I just couldn't hold the tears in anymore. I needed to be home. I needed to decompress. But when I walked through the door, I heard voices in the kitchen. Marcus and Dolores, talking low but intense. I froze in the hallway, listening. I'm telling you, son, it's the perfect opportunity, Dolores was saying. My friend Lucille knows a real estate agent who can find us something nice in Buckhead. A real house, Marcus. With a yard. Room for family to visit. I don't know, Mama. Moving is expensive. That's my point, baby. Why are we throwing away almost $2,000 a month on rent for this apartment when we could be building equity? When you could be building a future for your children? I pressed myself against the wall, heart pounding. The lease is up in 3 months, Dolores continued. That's the perfect time to leave. We can find something better. Something that's really ours. Ours. She said ours. Like I wasn't even part of the equation. What about Naomi? Marcus asked, and for a second, just a second, hope flickered in my chest. Dolores laughed. Actually laughed. What about her? Marcus, honey, let me be real with you. That girl has been nothing but a burden since day one. She can barely cook. She can't keep house properly. She doesn't even go to church regular. I've been watching her for 2 years now, and I'm sorry, but she's not good enough for you. You could do so much better. I held my breath, waiting for Marcus to defend me. Waiting for him to say something, anything, to push back against this woman tearing me apart. She does try, Mama, he said weakly. She's not that bad. Not that bad isn't good enough for my son. You deserve a queen, Marcus. A woman who knows her place. A woman who respects her elders. A woman who can give me grandbabies and raise them right. Is Naomi any of those things? Silence. A silence that crushed my soul. I didn't think so, Dolores continued. Look, when the lease is up, we'll find a new place. Just you and me for now. She can go back to wherever she came from. You'll move on. Find someone better. It's for the best. And then Marcus said the words that shattered my heart. Maybe you're right, Mama. Maybe it is for the best. I didn't confront them that day. I couldn't. I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and cried until there were no tears left. Then I washed my face, fixed my makeup, and walked into the kitchen like nothing had happened. You're home early, Marcus said, startled. Headache, I managed. I'm going to lie down. I spent that night staring at the ceiling while Marcus snored beside me. My husband. The man I had trusted with my heart. The man who had just agreed to throw me away like I was nothing. For 3 days, I walked around in a fog. I went to work, came home, smiled at Dolores's barbs, kissed Marcus goodnight. But inside, I was making a plan. See, there comes a moment in every woman's life when she has to decide, am I going to let this break me, or am I going to break free? I thought about my mama. How she worked herself to the bone for us kids. How she never complained, never gave up, never let anybody make her feel like less than what she was. You gonna be something special, baby girl, she used to say. Don't you ever forget that. I wasn't going to forget. But I also wasn't going to play my hand too soon. There's an old saying, maybe you've heard it, never let them see you sweat. Another one goes, give your enemies enough rope, and they'll hang themselves. I decided to wait. To watch. To let them think their plan was working. Over the next few weeks, Dolores got bolder. She started leaving real estate flyers on the coffee table. She pointed out houses on TV. Oh, Marcus, look at that one. Wouldn't that be perfect? She started dropping hints that I should think about my options. That maybe I wasn't happy here and should consider what I really want. I smiled and nodded. I played the fool. And I waited. Then came the day Dolores finally showed her whole hand. It was a Sunday afternoon. Marcus was at the gym. I was sitting on the couch, reading a book, minding my own business. Dolores came out of her room dressed like she was going to a coronation, hair done, nails done, pearls around her neck. She sat down across from me and folded her hands in her lap. Naomi, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I think it's time we had a little talk. Woman to woman. I put my book down. Of course, Miss Dolores. What's on your mind? I'll get straight to the point. I don't think this marriage is working. Marcus isn't happy. Anyone can see that. And frankly, dear, neither are you. I kept my face neutral. Is that so? It is. And I think, for everyone's sake, it might be best if you moved on. Started fresh somewhere else. You want me to leave? I want what's best for my son. And what's best for my son is a clean break. The lease on this apartment is up in 6 weeks. Marcus and I are going to find a new place. A better place. And I'm afraid there just isn't room for you in our plans. Our plans. Like I was some houseguest who'd overstayed her welcome. Like this wasn't my home. My apartment. My life. I see, I said carefully. And Marcus agrees with this? Dolores smiled. A cold, triumphant smile. He does. We've discussed it extensively. He's too soft-hearted to tell you himself, that's why I'm doing it. Consider this your notice, Naomi. 6 weeks. I suggest you start looking for somewhere else to stay. She patted her knees and stood up. I'm glad we had this talk. I know it's hard to hear, but it really is for the best. You'll thank me someday. And she walked away. Just like that. Like she had just swatted a fly instead of trying to destroy a woman's entire life. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the wall. My hands were shaking. My heart was racing. But underneath the anger, underneath the hurt, there was something else. Relief. Because now I knew exactly who I was dealing with. And now I knew exactly what I had to do. The next 6 weeks were a masterclass in patience. Dolores and Marcus started house hunting in earnest. They went to open houses on weekends. They spent evenings looking at listings online, pointing and discussing like I wasn't sitting right there. They talked about our new kitchen and our new backyard and finally having some space. I bit my tongue so many times I'm surprised it didn't fall off. At work, I made copies of all my documents. The deed to the apartment. The property tax records. The HOA documentation with my name, and only my name, as the owner. I put everything in a safe deposit box at the bank. I wanted to be ready. I also started slowly moving my most precious things to Tamara's house. My mama's pearls. Family photo albums. The quilt my grandmother made. Nothing they would notice, but things I couldn't bear to lose if everything went sideways. Girl, why don't you just tell them the truth? Tamara asked one night, helping me sort through boxes. Because I need to see it, I said. I need to see how far they'll go. I need to know, once and for all, who my husband really is. And if he's not who you hoped? I was quiet for a moment. Then at least I'll know. And I can stop hoping and start healing. Tamara hugged me. I got you, sis. Whatever happens. I got you. The weeks ticked by. Dolores got more and more confident. She started referring to my apartment as this old place and our temporary arrangement. She talked about the future like I wasn't in it. And Marcus. Marcus just went along with all of it. One night, he actually sat me down to talk about our options. He stammered and sweated and couldn't quite meet my eyes. Naomi, things have been. We've been having some. Look, maybe we rushed into this marriage thing. Maybe we both need some time to figure out what we really want. Are you asking me for a divorce, Marcus? No. Not exactly. I just think, when the lease is up, maybe we should separate for a while. Take some space. Space, I repeated. And where exactly am I supposed to go? You could stay with your friend. Tamara? Or maybe get a little apartment somewhere. Something affordable. Affordable, I said. Because I obviously can't afford anything too nice, right? He looked relieved that I wasn't crying. That I wasn't making a scene. I knew you'd understand, he said. This is the mature way to handle things. I wanted to slap him. I wanted to scream. But instead, I just smiled. You're right, Marcus. This is very mature. I appreciate you being so honest with me. He patted my hand like I was a child who'd just learned to share. We'll figure this out, Naomi. Everything will work out. Oh, it would work out all right. Just not the way he expected. It was a Saturday. 2 days before the lease was supposedly up. Dolores had found a house she loved, a 4-bedroom colonial in Buckhead, way out of their price range, but apparently Marcus had been saving up. She was practically floating with joy. That morning, she called a family meeting. Just her and Marcus and me, sitting in the living room. She had a folder in her lap and that smug, victorious look on her face. Well, she said, I think it's time we finalized our arrangements. The moving company is booked for Monday. Marcus has put down the deposit on the new house. And Naomi. She turned to me with fake sympathy. I hope you've found somewhere to stay. I sat very still. Actually, Miss Dolores, there's something we need to discuss first. She raised an eyebrow. Oh. And what's that? The apartment. What about it? The lease is up on Tuesday. We've already notified the landlord. I couldn't help it. I laughed. A real laugh, deep from my belly, the first genuine laugh I'd had in months. They both stared at me like I'd lost my mind. There is no landlord, I said, pulling out my own folder. Because there is no lease. I laid the deed on the coffee table. Then the property tax records. Then the HOA documents. All of it, spread out like evidence at a trial. This apartment, I said, is mine. My name is on the deed. Has been since before I ever met you, Marcus. I bought it outright with money my mama left me. Paid in full. No mortgage. No rent. Just mine. The silence in that room was so thick you could have cut it with a knife. Dolores's face went through about 6 different expressions: confusion, disbelief, understanding, and then pure, white-hot rage. That's not possible, she stammered. Marcus said you were paying rent. Marcus said what I told him to say. What I needed him to believe. Because my mama taught me never to show all my cards to anyone. Especially not a man I'd only known for a few months. I turned to my husband. My so-called husband. He looked like he'd been slapped. You lied to me, he managed. I protected myself. There's a difference. I didn't know you, Marcus. Not really. And thank God I didn't tell you, because look what you were planning to do. You were going to throw me out of my own home. My home. Because your mother told you to. I didn't know. Would it have mattered? I demanded. If you knew this place was mine, would you have treated me any differently? Would you have defended me against her attacks? Would you have loved me the way a husband is supposed to love a wife? He had no answer. Because we both knew the truth. Dolores found her voice. This doesn't change anything. Marcus is still my son. And you. And I am the owner of this property, I said, standing up. Which means I have every legal right to decide who stays here and who goes. And Miss Dolores? You've got 48 hours to pack your 7 suitcases and get out of my house. She actually gasped. Like I'd struck her. You can't do that. Marcus. Tell her she can't do that. But Marcus was still staring at the deed, at my name printed clear as day, at the proof that everything he thought he knew was wrong. It's her name, he said slowly. Naomi Grace Williams. It really is her apartment. I don't care whose name is on some piece of paper. Dolores shrieked. She's your wife. She's supposed to share. She's supposed to. What? I interrupted. I'm supposed to roll over while you disrespect me? I'm supposed to smile while you take over my home? I'm supposed to walk away from everything I worked for because you decided I wasn't good enough for your precious son? I stepped closer to her, and for the first time since I'd met her, Dolores actually looked afraid. Let me tell you something about me, Miss Dolores. My mama was a woman who worked 2 jobs to raise 3 kids alone. She scrubbed floors and changed bedpans and never complained once. She taught me that my worth isn't determined by what anyone else thinks of me. She taught me that respect has to be earned, not demanded. And she taught me that a woman should always, always, have something of her own. Something nobody can take away. I picked up the deed and held it to my chest. This is mine. And you don't get to take it from me. Not with your insults. Not with your manipulation. Not with your plans to push me out of my own life. Dolores's face was purple with rage. You ungrateful little... Mama! Marcus finally snapped. That's enough. We both turned to look at him. He was standing now, hands shaking, face twisted with emotions I couldn't quite read. That's enough. Please. He turned to me. Naomi, I don't know what to say. Then don't say anything, I told him. Because words stopped meaning anything from you a long time ago. Dolores left the next day. Not in 48 hours, in 12. She couldn't stand to be in my presence for a moment longer than necessary. She called Marcus every name in the book for letting this happen, packed her 7 suitcases with furious efficiency, and slammed the door so hard on her way out that a picture fell off the wall. Good riddance. Marcus tried to stay. He tried to apologize, to explain, to make things right. I didn't know, Naomi. I swear I didn't know she was saying those things to you. I didn't know she was planning. You didn't want to know, I corrected him. There's a difference. Every time I tried to tell you how she treated me, you dismissed me. Every time I asked you to set boundaries, you chose her. You were going to divorce me, Marcus. You were going to throw me out on the street because your mother told you to. I wasn't thinking clearly. She manipulated me too. Maybe. But a man who can be manipulated into abandoning his wife isn't a man I can trust. A marriage without trust isn't a marriage at all. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. He didn't fight me on anything, he didn't have a leg to stand on. The apartment was mine. My savings were mine. The life I had built was mine. He walked away with his clothes, his car, and hopefully a lesson learned. I heard through the grapevine that Dolores never did find that house in Buckhead. She moved in with Charlene after all, crammed into a house with 4 kids and a lot of chaos. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if she thinks about what she lost. If she realizes that her need for control cost her son his marriage and cost her the comfortable life she was trying to steal. Probably not. People like Dolores rarely have that kind of self-awareness. As for me, I'm doing okay. Better than okay, actually. I redecorated the apartment. Painted the walls colors I actually like. Filled the space with my things, my energy, my peace. I go to church every Sunday now, not because anyone tells me to, but because it feeds my soul. I have dinner with Tamara every week. I joined a book club. I started dating again, slowly, carefully, making sure any man I let into my life respects me for who I am. And every night, before I go to sleep, I thank my mama. For the gift she gave me. For the wisdom she passed down. For the voice in my head that told me to hold something back. To protect myself. To wait. If you've stayed with me this long, thank you. Thank you for letting me share my story. I know some of you might be thinking, why didn't you just tell the truth from the beginning? Why the deception? And I understand that question. I really do. But here's what I've learned: in a perfect world, we'd all be able to be completely open with the people we love. We'd trust without reservation. We'd share without fear. But this isn't a perfect world. This is a world where women are taken advantage of. Where love is used as a weapon. Where the people who should protect us sometimes become the ones we need protection from. I don't regret keeping my secret. That secret saved me. It gave me a foundation to stand on when everything else was crumbling. It gave me power when they tried to make me powerless. My mama knew what she was doing when she told me to hold something back. She wasn't teaching me to be dishonest. She was teaching me to be wise. There's a difference. So here's what I want you to take from my story. Know your worth. Don't let anybody, mother-in-law, husband, friend, or stranger, make you feel like less than what you are. Protect yourself. Whether it's an apartment, a savings account, a career, or just your peace of mind, have something that's yours. Something nobody can take. Trust your instincts. That little voice inside you, the one that whispers be careful or something isn't right. Listen to it. It's trying to save you. And finally, don't be afraid to walk away. From a marriage, from a family, from a life that's making you small. You deserve to be big. You deserve to take up space. You deserve to be loved for exactly who you are. I'm closing this story now, but before I go, I have a question for you. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself when everyone around you was trying to tear you down? Have you ever discovered a truth that changed everything? Have you ever had to choose between peace and the people who were supposed to love you? If you have, I see you. I honor you. I know how hard it is. And if you're still in the middle of your own storm, still trying to figure out when to speak and when to wait, still wondering if you have the strength to fight for yourself, let me tell you something. You do. You absolutely do. Because you, like me, like my mama, like all the women who came before us, you are stronger than you know. Wiser than they give you credit for. More powerful than they want you to believe. Don't you ever forget that. This is Naomi, signing off. Wishing you peace, protection, and the courage to claim what's rightfully yours. God bless you. And thank you for listening.